What is up, you guys? Cruiser67 here on Death Row today, and I promised you guys that I would do a comparative video for Archfiends versus whoops, did I say? Versus Bujins or War Gods, because like I said in my earlier videos, both of these decks are archetypes that are both of these decks are archetypes that are coming out in the new form in the new set Judgment of Light, which is actually coming out tomorrow. So August 9th, so you guys can start picking up your Judgment of Light packs right away when this stuff comes out. And I know there's going to be support for Mecha Phantom Beast, there's going to be new support for Fire Fist, there's going to be support for, obviously, Fire Kings also with the OCG imports, and Noble Knights and all that stuff. But I think as far as decks that are coming out of this set, Archfiends and Bujins, like I said, are the two best. So let's start with Archfiends, just because alphabetical order, right? The new Archfiends basically get their effects off by being destroyed by card effects, and they have a huge boss monster over here. So let's start with the boss monster. We got Genesis Archfiend. It's got 3,000 attack, 2,000 defense. It's a level 8 monster. Obviously, it's a fiend. And the good part about him is that you can normal summon it without tributing, but its defense, attack, and defense are halved, and during the end phase, it gets destroyed. This works well with Pandemonium, because then you get a free search off. So yes. And while it's on the field, you can't special summon any monsters other than fiend-type monsters, which isn't really that big of a deal, unless you have unless you try to go tour guide plus trick archery into something besides a fiend. But you have no level 3 fiend monsters except for 10 tempo. But that won't normally happen. And it's also got that High Priestess effect, or Master Hyperion effect, where you can banish an Archfiend card from your hand or graveyard to target a card in the field and destroy it. So it's pretty decent as a boss monster goes. We got two, well, not two, but this deck. We have Archfiend Empress that goes in this deck mostly. People use it. It works well with Genesis Archfiend. It's got the same stats. It's a level 8. It's got 2,900 attack though, not 3K like our Genesis does. And it's got some pretty cool effects. If exactly one fiend type monster on the field except itself would be destroyed, so either by battle or by a card effect, you can remove from play a dark fiend type monster from your graveyard instead to keep it alive, which is really good. Which is really cool if you have it on the field and you have Genesis on the field and you want to keep Genesis alive, and they try either they try to soul taker it, or they try to pop it with Drago Sack or whatever. You can just remove from play a dark fiend type monster in your graveyard instead, and you have all the dark fiend type monsters except for Dark Arm, obviously. And also, when it's destroyed and sent from the field to the graveyard, you can select a level 6 or higher dark fiend type monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So basically, when this dies, it gets back this, which works. Archfiend General, you basically get this to get Pandemonium, so essentially you have 4 Pandemoniums. Then we have Archfiend Cavalry, which is coming out in the set. Actually, the only new cards that are coming out really are Genesis, Cavalry, and Trick to really make the deck. But this is essentially a build. This is my build. I'm going to be showcasing what this kind of deck could do. Cavalry is 1900 attack. It's basically like Doom Caliber Knight, except it doesn't negate stuff. And when it's destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target an archery monster in your graveyard except for itself and special summon it, but it can't attack this turn. So this is good. You summon it, you set Torrential, you wait for your opponent to make a big push or whatever. You Torrential, you get back Genesis, and then since it doesn't have to attack because it's on your opponent's turn, you can just use its effect and attack with it next turn. So Archfiend's pretty good. It combos well with Torrential. It does combo well, obviously, with, hold on a second, with, where is it? Archfiend Commander, but Archfiend Commander is not TCG legal, and the builds that I'm going to be showing you guys today are TCG legal, so you can play these in upcoming tournaments and stuff like that if you'd like. That's why Commander's not in here. Next, we have Trick Archfiend. Trick Archfiend is basically our searcher of the deck. It's a level 3 fiend, so it combos well with Tour Guide, and when it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect or being destroyed by battle, you can add an Archfiend card from your deck to your hand, except for itself. And you can only use its searching effect once per turn, but Essentially, it's really good. You even get its effect when it, like, if you Exceed with it with Tour Guide and then you detach it as material, you get its effect also. It's what people wanted with Sangan and Tour Guide. We actually get it here. And you can run Tour Guide, you can run Dark Armed like I'm doing here because you do have all these darks, and you are removing from play a lot of darks, especially with Genesis's effect. That's why you run Leviair in the extra deck along with Tour Guide to get through these things. You can play Dark Armed if you want. You could also play Triple Veiler and then run BLS if that suits your fancy. I didn't. I decided not to do this deck just because. Use cards that you can use to support this deck. You could use Allure of Darkness, like I'm doing here. Pandemonium. Pandemonium is an exceptional field spell card. I know they came up with a new field spell card. Where is it? Archfiend Labyrinth or some shit like that. And it's not that bad. It makes the deck a little faster. The new one, because you can banish a fiend type monster you control, except for you need to have 2 Archfiend monsters on the field for this to work. So you banish 1 fiend type monster you control, then summon an Archfiend monster from your deck, from your hand deck or graveyard with the same level as that target. So essentially, I don't know, like you could banish Empress and get Genesis. You can banish Tour Guide and get Trick. You can banish Cavalry and get Archfiend General, I guess. I don't know. So, but mostly people I think are going to be playing Pandemonium because Pandemonium works super well with this deck, especially since they get their effects by being destroyed by card effects. Well, Pandemonium works because each time an Archfiend monster is destroyed by a card effect, that player can add an Archfiend monster from their deck to their hand that has a level lower than the destroyed card. So, like, if you open up first turn with Pandemonium and Genesis Archfiend, you can activate Pandemonium, normal summon Archfiend, then when it gets destroyed to the graveyard, destroyed during the end phase, because of its effect, you can get either Cavalry or Trick to your hand, which is pretty good. It essentially makes it a +1. Another card that works really well with the deck is Falling Down. You can only you destroy this card if there's no Archfiend card on your side of the field. So, but you get to take control of one of your opponent's monsters that is equipped with this card. So it's basically like a brain control, because then you take 800 points of damage during each of your opponent's standby phases. The card's freaking fantastic. You could Exceed with it. You can do what you want with it. Then we had then other cards that work well: Foolish Burial, just to get Trick to the graveyard, or you can send Genesis to the graveyard, and if you have like Monster Reborn, if you have Archfiend's Roar. Trade-in, because we run 5 targets. Good for drawing. Dark Will Dealings, because sometimes you want your Archfiends in the graveyard, and Trick gets her effect when she's sent to the graveyard with Dealings, so that's why it combos well and you draw a card. Basically, everything else is standard, although this deck, instead of running the two commanders, you can run Archfiend's Roar, and Archfiend's Roar is a pretty good card. You pay 500 life points. You basically it's like a Monster Reborn for Archfiend cards, but you pay 500 life points, and it gets destroyed during the end phase. So again, combos well with Pandemonium. So that's basically the deck. As you can see, it's pretty standard, but it's really good if you guys have seen my videos. So yeah, that's basically Archfiends. Let's get into Bujins, or War Gods. War Gods are pretty straightforward. You send the Bujinjis to the graveyard, or you add them to your hand, and then keep them with Yamato on the field to keep Yamato alive and basically beat down your opponent. The deck is very Yamato-centric, so you can run like Safe Zone or something to save Yamato. I just prefer having more trap cards and stuff. So Yamato's a level 4 Beast Warrior, 1800, and so it's searchable by Tenki. And once per turn during your end phase, you can add a Bujin monster from your deck to your hand, and then send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. And you can only control 1 of these guys. But essentially, with all the effects that you're doing, by either sending your Bujinjis to the graveyard or adding them to your hand, you're keeping Yamato alive. There's the Turtle. The Turtle, when it's in the graveyard during either player's turn, when a Bujin monster you control is targeted by a card effect, you can banish it from your graveyard and negate that effect. This negates destroying effects, so this negates popping things like Draco Sack. This negates if they want to steal it with Big Eye. This even negates Effect Veiler. Like, if they try Effect Veiling your Yamato so that during the end phase they don't get their effect, you can just banish your Turtle and it'll be fine. Then there's Quillin. Quillin is your destroyer. If you control a Bujin Beast Warrior type monster, you can banish it from your graveyard and then target a face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. But you can only use this effect once per turn. But it's still a great removal card. Then there's the Crane. The Crane, it's kind of like an Honest during damage calcs when a Bujin Beast Warrior type monster you control battles an opponent's monster. You send it from your hand to the graveyard, and then basically your battling monster becomes double its original attack. So essentially, you have Yamato on the field. Yamato, if you activate Crane's effect, Yamato becomes 3,600, which is pretty darn good. And then we run Honest because we run a bunch of lights. You know, you could run Ryo in this deck. You could run. Well, that's basically the only light support I think that they have. But Honest definitely works with the deck. It's the same kind of thing as Crane, but Honest is obviously better because it's Honest. Other cards that are coming out in Judgment of the Light that'll work with this deck is Rise of the Bujin. It basically grants you a free Xyz monster. It's kind of like a Cyber Dragon way. If your opponent controls a monster and you control none, you can target one Bujin monster in your graveyard and one of your banished Bujin monsters and special summon both those targets. And they cannot be used as Xyz materials for an Xyz summon except to Xyz summon a Beast, Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast type monster. But that doesn't really matter because you don't have to Xyz summon with them. Two good things about the card. A, it grants you an easy rank 4 Xyz summon, so you'd be going probably into Susan. But also, it lets you recycle your banished Bujin monster. So, like, if you use Quillen's effect 3 times, God knows why, you activate this thing, you get Quillen back into your graveyard. Works. Tenki obviously works at this deck. You could run Bear in here because you run triple Tenki, because you have to get Yamato, and if you don't have Yamato, you're kind of fucked. Just saying. But that's basically it. That's all you really need for the deck, and then it's really player preference. You have to run Susan, though, in your extra deck. She's a rank 4, 2400, 1600, 7400 attack, 1600 defense, and you need 2 level 4 Bujins to do it, to make it. It can attack every monster your opponent controls once, so it's not that bad, but you really use it for the effect of once per turn you can detach a material from a card and either add a Bujin monster from your deck to your hand or send a Bujin monster from your deck to the graveyard. So basically this deck is a control deck. You control what's going on with Crane, Turtle, and Quillen. These are the only TCG, the ones that are going to be TCG, I think. You could... Yada's coming out too. If I remember correctly. And Yada is kind of like a Magic Cylinder, but it halves the attack. It halves the damage, equal to half the target's attack. You negate the attack and then inflict damage to your opponent equal to half that monster's attack. So it's not bad, but really all you need is the Turtle, Quillen, and the Crane. And the other spell cards, I don't know. Personally, I don't think they're that great. I mean, you got this kind of cold wave thing going on. Bujin Regalia the Mirror. You have the Armament Apparition, which basically either adds a Bujin to your hand or brings a Bujin back from your graveyard to your banished zone to your graveyard. And this one's kind of like Gemini Spark. But I think this is basically what you need. So I hope you guys liked this video. And tell me in the comment section below, which deck are you going to be playing, if any, from Judgment Light? Bujins, Archfiends, or maybe something else. Maybe you might be wanting to play Mecha Phantom Beasts or whatever. Hope you guys liked the video. Please don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Cruiser67,